we have an article from Digital Trends, and in fact, there have been videos from the Art of Photography and things like that talking about this, and I haven't had a chance to really test because I don't have an Intel Mac that isn't like from 2013. But Adobe has rolled out native versions of Illustrator, Lightroom, and InDesign for the M1 Max. And in fact, Lightroom and Illustrator are supposedly 80% faster on the M1 Max versus the Intel Max, which is pretty interesting. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily make it that much faster than an x86 computer, generally speaking, just the Intel Max specifically, which may have had some performance bottleneck or something. But it's pretty interesting to see. They had a few optimizations get involved, and they introduced super resolution for upscaling photos as well into Adobe Lightroom, which is pretty neat. So we're looking at Illustrator saw a 65% performance increase, InDesign a 59%, and Lightroom Classic a 116% performance increase over Intel Max, which is pretty wild, pretty neat to see what they can do there. I will say, having spent some time trying to use Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve on my M1 Mac Mini that I have right over here. So, you may have seen your sub feed be filled with videos talking about people who are ditching their Mac Pros or their expensive computers for an M1 iMac or Mac Mini or whatever. Obviously, I knew that that wasn't realistic, despite the fact that that's what all these videos are saying. I knew that wasn't realistic whatsoever. But also, I wanted to put that to the test because that's what everyone keeps saying. And I will say that my experience has been pretty disappointing. Now, obviously, my point of comparison isn't fair. I am coming from a giant desktop tower with a 3970X Threadripper, a Titan RTX, 128 gigs of RAM, very optimized SSD workflows for cache and scratch disks and all of that. But keep in mind that as expensive as my computer build may be, it is literally a fraction of the cost of a Mac Pro. And yet, people are claiming they're ditching their Mac Pro for the iMac M1 or what have you. So I wanted to see how it performed. And DaVinci Resolve is one of the first editing programs that got optimized for M1. And so I wanted to try it out since that's what I use. And the experience has not been great. It's been sluggish. It's been slow. I have to enable like quarter res timeline proxies to play back my footage. Doing certain GPU accelerated effects is incredibly slow compared to my Titan RTX with 24 gigs of VRAM. Who would have thought? I feel like it's RAM limited, VRAM limited, GPU, you know, I can immediately see the different effects because I'm so used to editing in Resolve where I can identify what the specific bottlenecks are. And I'm just confused. Either the people whose videos I've seen about this have much more simplified timelines than I expected, or the editing workflow in something like Final Cut, which is what I think they're using, which is obviously going to be more optimized, is that significantly different. And I don't use Final Cut. I never have. I probably never will. So I can't really use that as a point of comparison, especially since it doesn't run on Windows in the first place. Yes, the music is played. Do I need to turn it up a bit? There we go. But I don't know. And also it comes down to specific codecs. Like obviously the M1s have specific optimizations for decoding and encoding H.264 and H.265, but not necessarily Blackmagic Raw, which is what most of my stuff is using. And even the Canon Raw and the Canon XAVC or whatever is still having to go through Rosetta as well to be decoded. So there's a lot that gets involved in translating stuff over to M1 that may not work out here, but I was just generally disappointed, and that's unfortunate. Now, I didn't buy the M1 to replace my giant computer tower, but with everyone talking about ditching their big, expensive computers for the M1, I wanted to find out. I was fairly open to it, so yeah.